Hey, everybody. How are you?
Good afternoon, John. It's great to have you. Thank you so much. I'm glad you're here. When I asked John to share about how he was rethinking ministry coming out of this pandemic, I had no idea what John was going through personally. Because when I invited him, he was the lead pastor of First Assembly of God in Victorville, California, where he had been for 14 years or 15 years. During his time there, the church grew into a multi site ministry, expanding to 15 different campuses and 5 language groups. Under his leadership, they launched a number of crucial ministries, including a ministry training cohort with Vanguard University. While in Victorville, John also served as the superintendent of schools for Victory Valley Christian School, K through 12, and preschool. What's interesting is that's who I thought I was inviting, John, and I know that I did. He wasn't at liberty, if he even knew at the time, to tell me, exactly what was going on. But since then, John has completely rethought his life and ministry, and he has joined the SoCal, Southern California network of the Assemblies of God as the assistant superintendent, where he oversees leadership development and church ministries. So on our call the other day, Kevin and I said, we are anxious to hear what John is going to talk about. I'm sure you have a lot to talk about. John Martin, you're not a stranger to many in the room. We want to say thank you for joining us. Let's welcome John Martin.
Hey, everybody. It is great to be with you today. What a joy, a privilege it is to be a part of your Rethink One Day. Just want to make sure, can all of you hear me okay? If you can hear me okay, wave at me for a second. Awesome. That's great. Thank you so much. Good to know. The technology is great, but it also has an interesting feel to it at times. So thank you for that. I want to thank Pastor Lee for inviting me to be a part of this one day with you. And what a privilege it is to be with you and to see Pastor Bill Wilson as well. Great to connect with our friends in Oregon. And so I just let me share a little bit of the story real quick, just since Pastor Lee kind of set it up that way. It's amazing how God gets you ready for the next thing, doesn't he? And he prepares your steps. The steps of the righteous are ordered of the Lord. And we had a great Christmas season this last year. People are getting saved. We had I think it was on New Year's Eve, we baptized 27 people in water. It was fun to just dunk people and just celebrate that with them. And that was awesome. And then January 2nd, the first Sunday of January, I drive onto our campus. We have a beautiful 19 acres of land, and I drive on the campus. Rhonda's riding shotgun with me, and we're the first ones there. And this wave hits me that our time is done. And I don't know if things like that have ever hit you before, but that kind of came out of the blue a bit. And in the midst of that was like the Holy Spirit was saying, if Pastor Rich Garrett calls you, you need to entertain the call. And so I thought, wow, this is weird. We sat in the car for a minute, talked about it. And then, as ministry goes, you all know this, on a Sunday, you can't sit in the car very long. It's game on. And so you do what you got to do. And so you're into it. The next night, I'm out with Rhonda and a couple that we are interviewing to come onto the team, and had a wonderful dinner together. And out of nowhere, this couple at the end of the interview says, what happens if Pastor Rich Garrett ever calls you and asks you to come to the district office? And I said, well, I'll deal with that if that ever happens. And yeah, Rhonda and I went home and said, okay, first we got Sunday, now we got Monday. What in the world's going on? The very following day, Tuesday morning, Rich texts me and says, we need to talk. And even that, I didn't think a lot about it because we've interacted for various reasons about ministry stuff. And yet he started to unpack this thing of, hey, I want you to come to the district office and be an assistant superintendent. And it's amazing how God sometimes shifts ministry. And so, yes, as Pastor Lee mentioned, I'm overseeing leadership development and church ministries. And I've got our NA or DA churches. Different districts use different terminology, but our NA DA churches, that's in my portfolio as well. And so there's a lot on my plate. It's a joy, it's a privilege to be a part of the SoCal network. And I'm all of, let's see, about 50 days into this. And so brand new, but having a great time. So as Pastor Lee set this up, yeah, it took a process to kind of get through, and there's things I couldn't talk about. But we had a great time in Victorville, 15 years, 15 campuses. Had the joy and privilege of serving as the chair of Vanguard University's board for 3 years and served on the board for 10. Just amazing things that happen. And so today, I just like to kind of share my heart with you about thinking forward, because God doesn't waste anything. God uses your experience in life to prepare you for the next step. And it's really important that we all get ready for the next step. I think about a couple of verses as you have it. I think you have a handout probably in front of you in First Chronicles chapter 12, verse 32, where it says, from the tribe of Issachar, you know the passage, there were 1,200 leaders of the tribe with their relatives. All these men understood the signs of the times and knew the best course for Israel to take. They understood the times and they knew what they should do. And that's my prayer for you as I woke up this morning. Lord, give this wonderful team in Oregon amazing wisdom, strength, help them read the signs of the times so that in their own communities, their own respective areas, they can be an incredible asset of yours, touching lives like never before. I think of a message I heard when I was a kid. It's amazing how, as a kid, you don't necessarily you hear tons of preaching, maybe if you grew up in the church, but you may not remember all of the messages. And yet, one message I heard early on, I was probably, I don't know, 12, 11 years of age. And I remember a message on Solomon. And I remember how, as it was being preached, that Solomon asked for wisdom. And I remember saying, Lord, I want that for my life. I want to be wise. I want to be a wise guy and have the ability to lead people well. And so I also leave with you that verse in Second Chronicles 1:10 through 12, which says, Solomon speaking, give me wisdom and knowledge to lead them properly. For who could possibly govern this great people of yours? And God said to Solomon, because your greatest desire is to help your people, and you did not ask for wealth, riches, fame, or even death of your enemies or long life, but rather you asked for wisdom and knowledge to properly govern my people, I will certainly give you the wisdom and knowledge you requested, but I'll also give you wealth, riches, fame, such as no other king has ever had before you or will ever have in the future. Second Chronicles 1. May God grant you and me and all of us the ability to understand the times, which are so new, and know what we should do. And may we have wisdom and knowledge from God's hand above as to how to lead people well. So I want to dive into, I'm going to say 3 key words today, and then develop that just a little bit with you about the importance of putting this into play. Number one is the word focus. Focus. I have found that in my life, and I'm going to speak from personal example here, that during the pandemic, maybe this happened to you. There was a season where we are constantly pivoting so much. It was like almost on a weekly basis. We're pivoting again, we're pivoting again. And it's amazing how we can easily lose our focus on what is the end game. And we're just trying to move into maintenance mode of just getting through this week or getting through this month. And I've talked to, I'll say, too many pastors that have lost their focus. And so I want to challenge you to make sure that you regain that focus. And so part of that would be focusing on the opportunity, not the frustration. We've all been frustrated at times. There have been things that have happened, and we've got to realize we only have a certain amount of energy. Don't spend your energy on what frustrates you, but spend your energy on the opportunity that is in front of you. Don't spin your wheels on those frustrations. It's not going to get you anywhere. We need to focus on the opportunities. We can't keep comparing ourselves back to 2019. I've walked and run into too many pastors that are still going, man, I'm trying to get back to 2019. that ship has sailed and it's time to move on. And as we move on, we need to not focus on the things that are holding us back, but we need to focus on the opportunities that are in front of us. Someone once said that the greater the crisis, the greater the opportunity. The greater the crisis, the greater the opportunity. We've had a big crisis across the world, and it creates opportunity for change, probably like no other time in our lifetime. And so, as you may have heard people say in your church, we've all heard it at some point in time. Um, why change this? It's worked for us in the past and it'll continue to work for us in the future. And I think that the more as pastors we rely on what has been done in the past, we're going to miss the opportunity for the future. So, in the words of Disney Frozen, let it go, right? Let it go, right? Just go ahead and sing it. Let it go. Let that past be in the past and move on to the future. So focus on the opportunity. Second thing with that is then to focus on the people you're reaching, not on the people that you've lost. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not asking you not to reach out to the people that we've lost. We've all lost people. In fact, some of us have lost a ton of people. And in fact, in the midst of losing people, it's been painful. We've lost people to death. Just curious. Just give me a quick moment to do a survey with you. How many of you in your congregation have lost someone to COVID? They died. They passed away. They're now in heaven. You've lost someone to COVID, and you raise your hand if that's the case. Yeah, we lost several people. We lost in our school. We lost 3 teachers: a 3rd grade teacher, a 5th grade teacher, and an art teacher. And it's painful. Yet, in the midst of all of those things, there's moments where we still need to move on and we need to lead well. So, go after the people that you've lost, yes, but after a period of time, we all get it. They've made their decision. They voted with their feet, and they've chosen what they've chosen. And let's focus on reaching the new people. Okay, let's make sure that we're pulling the new people in your church. Build the new core with even the new people that have come into your congregation, and pull them in. Rebuild the best you can with that. And then the third thing with that, I just leave with you, is that focus on what you can control, not on what is out of your control. There's a lot of things during the pandemic that have been out of our control. The virus is out of our control. Government regulations have been out of our control. People's responses, things that are said on social media that people say it's out of our control. But there's certain things that we can control. We can still create an environment to lead people to Jesus. We can still conduct a service where people enjoy worshiping and experiencing the presence of God. We can pour into people that come into our church. We can pour into our community. And so we can focus on what we can control as opposed to what we can not control. So with that, let me move to the second thought there, and regaining our focus as pastors. That if you feel like you've lost your edge, let today, as a one day rethink, be a moment to regain that edge. Make sure that you take some time, get away, fall on your knees before the Lord. Make sure that you're hearing from Him and you regain that focus, because it's easy during this pandemic to lose that. But the second thing is to choose. So let me give you 4 thoughts under choosing that I think are important, and this starts to build it out a little bit. Number 1 is we need to choose a new vision. If your vision for your church has been established pre-pandemic, I would encourage you to rethink the entire vision all over again. Get a blank slate of paper out, clean sheet, and say, things that we've said as a vision in the past, is this still what we need to do today? Is this what we need to see happen today? If it does, then it's back in. But if it's not, maybe that ship has sailed. Maybe that's something that you don't need to focus on because now the pandemic has changed everything. And so make sure that your vision is current and fresh for today. Always remember your purpose and your mission remains the same. That never changes. It's a biblical mandate. Your purpose, your mission remains the same. And as you articulate that, whether that's in an acronym, whether that's in S words or R words or T words or whatever it ends up being, whatever fancy way that you say that, that never changes. But your vision is constantly changing as you accomplish certain things, as the Lord brings new things in. And so don't allow a pre-pandemic vision to rule where you are today, because it's important that we blank slate this and start all over again. As I think of some of the things that are important for us as we move forward with vision, that leaders who always want to go back will never move their organization forward. That's a Carey Nieuwhof statement, and I hold on to that pretty strongly. Leaders who always want to go back will never move their organization forward. And so having a new vision for a new day is incredibly important for all of us. So a new vision. What is that vision? Fall on your face before God, get that new vision, and then put that into play. Second thing would be new metrics. New metrics. As I think of how we would measure things, even the Assemblies of God is, trying to figure out as a whole, how do we measure this? And you saw this year, the ACMR report is very different than it has been in the past. And the whole metrics of where we are nationally as an organization, as a denomination looks way different, because how do we measure this? And so I want to you don't compare yourself back to 2019 and before, but get some new metrics. So let me give you some metrics I think that are good possibilities for you to look at as you move forward. Start focusing more on your first time guests. How many do you have coming through the door? And as you look at that, is that number increasing? Are you able to pull more people in? What are you doing to market well into the community in which you live? Get the word out there, taking outreach teams out, and as you're seeing people come through the door, start tracking how many first time guests you have. Start counting how many times you get them back again. That's a great metric, because you'll grow your church well if you can pull them back again. And average statistic is about 30% of first time guests coming back. I would encourage you to make sure that stays at least at 30%. Do the very best you can. Put some systems in place that help you to be able to reach out to the new people. So don't focus on what you've lost. Focus on the new people. Get the new metric in place. For church leaders, how many new volunteers do you have? I don't know about you, but in Victorville, we dealt with a major volunteer issue where during the pandemic, people are just wiped out. They're worn out. They're emotionally worn out. They're not wanting to re-engage. And so as a result of that, we're constantly trying to pull in new volunteers and train people up and get people moving forward. So how many new volunteers do you have? That's a great sign of them becoming part of the life of the church. I would encourage you to even track how many first-time donors do you have? Who are the people that are giving now for the first time? And I know people have different philosophies on that. I'll just give you mine. That some people hold to the philosophy as pastors, we shouldn't know anything about who's giving any money whatsoever to the church. The longer I do ministry, I don't hold that. I think it's important that you guard your heart, that you don't cater to people who are big givers in the church. But I think for you to be aware of where some of the dollars are coming from and who some of the new donors are, I think it'd be great to reach out. And one of the things that we started doing at the very end, before I left, was start writing a note. Hey, thank you so much for giving to our church today. That as a new donor, you want to encourage them to come back and be a part of what's going on. So I just think there's a lot more that can be done as pastors and as church leaders to increasing our donor base by loving on the people who are giving to the church. So I'll just leave that with you for what it's worth. The number of people who take a step to enroll in some kind of ministry for the first time, maybe as a metric, you would see a certain percentage of your congregation who is actively who has been sitting in the pew, not involved, and yet now for whatever reason, they're now choosing to get involved. Uh, we pushed at Victorville the membership class in a huge way. It worked for us because we had a huge Catholic influence and in the area, and because of that, people wanted to become a member of the church. Okay, so we capitalized on that, and people would come to the membership class. We would talk about the prerequisites of being a member of the church, that you need to be saved to be a member. You need to be on the same page with the pastoral staff and the leadership and the direction and the vision of the church. And so there were certain things that needed to be in place for you to become a member of the church. Need to be water baptized. That was a great thing too. People would come to the class and they're saved, but they've never been baptized in water. And it's like, man, you need to be baptized in water. That's an important thing. And so every membership class, we'd have people that would come out of that class going, man, I need to be baptized. And so it keeps people moving along. Whatever keeps people moving along in the relationship with the Lord, your discipleship side of this, I would encourage that to take place. So recognize people who are taking another step. Maybe they're getting involved in a small group for the first time. And as much as we may not like it, people like hearing from the pastor. Just there's a side of me that was like, man, why does it have to come from me? Well, they love hearing from the leader. And so when they get involved and say, hey, way to go, thanks for getting involved. Thanks for being baptized. Thanks for taking another step in your walk with the Lord. Anything that you do to bring encouragement to them, and then put a system with your team. And that's probably a greater drill down. Maybe it's part of a question, but there's other things that can be done to put those systems and structures in place, which really does lead then into the next point, and that is systems and structures. So choose a new vision. Don't get stuck with what the old vision is. If the old vision is relevant for today, well, then great. But maybe God's doing something in your heart about something new. And one of the things that the Lord spoke to me about during our pandemic time was we need to get out in the community more. We just need to be doing more outside the four walls of the building, and do things in parks, do things in neighborhoods, do things. And so, putting some of those things in place. So a new vision, to a new metric, and don't compare yourself again to 2019. Create the new metrics, and do it. I want to say, let me add to that. Do it on a monthly basis. Create the small wins, and let me just add to that. Small wins need to be celebrated, and the more that you celebrate small wins in your congregation, the more that you create momentum. And momentum is your friend. You need to do everything you can to get new momentum going. And that's one of the things that's obviously hit all of us, that everything comes like to a screeching halt, and we're not able to create the momentum that we do. So you got to figure out small win opportunities where you're celebrating, hey, 6 people got baptized, or hey, last week, 7 people raised their hand and made a decision for Christ. That, hey, last week we prayed for some people at the altar, 2 people were healed. I just celebrate the wins. Keep it out there. You're not giving praise to yourself. You're giving praise to God. Give the praise to God. Don't make yourself look good. Make God look good, right? And give the praise to him, but celebrate those wins as much as you possibly can. All right. That goes to number 3, and that's systems and structures. I'm going to use a Sam Chand illustration for a second, if I may. And some of you may be familiar with Sam Chand, a leadership coach guy. And he uses the illustration about trains on a train track when he talks about systems and structures. It resonates with me. So that's what I want to share with you, that each one of us as leaders, we're like the engine of the train. And we know across America, there's been a certain, obviously, rail system that's been in place, whether it is Burlington Northern, Santa Fe, whether it's Amtrak, whatever the companies may be, that there's an engine or more that drive those trains, that keep those cars moving. Across certain parts of the world, there are high-speed trains. And the high-speed trains obviously have a different track, have a different engine system, have a different entirety to it. And what would happen if you took a high speed train and you put it on one of our existing tracks going across the US, even though it is designed to go really fast, it may not be able to go with as much energy and speed and capability because the track is the thing that prohibits it. The train can only go so fast because the track can only handle so much. Until you change out the entire system of track, there's no way to be able to propel things forward in a greater way. And so for some of us in our churches, we need to look at systems and structures and change some things that have been going on for years, but it's really held us back from propelling forward because of the organization that's there. Sometimes it's things that are in place. Sometimes it's the unwritten thing that's said. You know how it is. Certain things in congregations, certain things in churches that hold us back from accomplishing great things because of the unwritten thing that's out there underlying what's not said within the congregation. So I share that with you to just simply say, make sure that you look at your systems and your structures and you're able to move on nicely. Information, as I think about one aspect of systems and structures, online and in person. Let's talk about it for a second. Some of us have we've all become TV preachers, right? And so we've gone online with things. We've gone with Facebook, we've gone with YouTube, we've gone Instagram, we've gone all sorts of different directions. You need to decide where do you really want to land with this? And I would encourage you to be willing to adapt to where the culture is going. Because more and more of what we're dealing with in a culture, as we all know, is online. And the great example of that is this moment right now, that more and more is happening this kind of way. And so I do want to share with you that more information needs to be going online. Information needs to be going on. That's where the trend is going. Information needs to be going online. I'll say it this way. We sold our house in Apple Valley. We have moved into a rental in Irvine, California here, Southern California in Orange County. And now we are looking for a new home. So we are on Zillow almost every day. And as we are just searching what's out there, we have a realtor. We have, this wonderful gal, she's working with us. We're looking at all sorts of stuff, but my information is coming primarily through Zillow. There's other engines out there as well, realtor.com, other things. But fact is, we're getting our information online. And in the church world, if we're not providing good information online, we've got ourselves a problem. Say it a different way. We just went live here on Monday with our camps, youth camps. Within 48 hours, we're sold out. Okay, that's a problem. But it was every bit of it was sold out online. Now we're trying to expand the camps, and we got a different set of problems. And it's always about solving a problem, isn't it? And so, but the point is that people are getting more and more of their information online. The average person coming to your church today checks you out online before they ever come through the door. And so your front door is no longer your front door. Your front door is what's on your website. Your front door is what they see in Facebook or Instagram. Your front door is what they're searching out. They're looking for stuff before they ever come to your front door. The average person picks up their information that way. So if you're not providing good information online, there's a problem. So I just want to share with you that trend, everything I'm reading, that trend, information online. Okay. Some are saying transformation in person, right? So here's the thing. I love being with you and I love interacting. We have a great, moment here, But the fact is that there you lose a little bit in the translation, even though this is great. You lose a little bit in translation because it's technology based. And there's moments where you get it as a pastor where you have a Holy Spirit moment in house in your church, in your sanctuary, in your auditorium, whatever it's called, in that place of worship, and God moves in that moment. Can God move online? Yes, he can. But there's something powerful about that, either that altar experience or that moment in that small group as people are looking face to face. So I want you to think about, how does online really come into play in the life of our church? Because people are looking online, they're looking for information, they're also looking for dialogue, they're looking for opportunity. And so we've got to provide that. We've got to be in that space. Otherwise, honestly, I think we're going to be left out. And man, we can look to some companies and know who's been left out. Just ask Blockbuster Video. There's a good example, right? Of who didn't change who they were. And so they ended up getting left out. So anyway, systems and structures, your organization, things in place, making sure that that's working for you. The fourth thing that I want to leave with you is, say, new staffing. So first is new vision. Second is new metrics. Third is new systems and structures. The fourth is new staffing. Now, please understand the context of this. I'm not asking you to fire your staff. I am not asking you to change who they are. But in the midst of doing what we do, moving forward, we need to repurpose how we're spending our dollars and what we're getting the best bang for our buck for. In Victorville, when the pandemic hit, as many of you did, we bought all sorts of equipment that we did not have. We had a certain amount of it, but we bought all sorts of equipment we didn't have. And then we started staffing towards that. So what is it in your heart to do, the new vision that God has given you for 2021, 2022 and beyond, that is, the money needs to go that way, the staffing needs to go that way. We need to reimagine where we have been and make sure that we move towards what will become. Staffing roles need to change. Even some of your existing staffing, you've got some great leaders on your team, and you know, I'm sure you have, but start talking if you haven't, and continue talking about, what do those roles need to be? How do we need to get into some space that we haven't been into very much, so that we can become more effective? What has been needs to change to what needs to be. Start staffing to where you need to go and putting your dollars that direction. So some thoughts for you there on what you need to choose. The last one that I want to leave with you, if I may, is develop. So focus, yes. Make sure that you're regaining your focus. Your focus is on the right things, and we're moving forward. We need to make certain choices as we focus on what we do, but we also then need to develop things. And I want to start and really focus primarily on you as the pastor. The transitions that are taking place right now in churches is huge. And I personally, I believe it's happening because people are worn out. People are going, man, I didn't bargain for this, and I get it. And man, I was in the trenches with you. There were times that no matter what you did, people didn't like it. If you did one thing, you're like, well, you're not doing enough of this. And especially how we handled masks, how we handled our services, how we handled social distancing, all of that. It was, nothing was dividing the church quicker than this pandemic. Okay, it's time to reunite people, but I want to focus on you and how important it is that you keep yourself healthy. You are the greatest asset to your church beyond the Holy Spirit. I don't mean that as a pat on the back. I don't mean that as an ego thing. Don't take that as an ego thing, because obviously God opposes the proud. He gives grace and favor to the humble. But as we think about the leader needs to be healthy. And so keep your time with Jesus strong. Make sure that your devotional time is strong, that your time with the Lord personally is good. Make sure that your eating habits are good. And if they're not, It'll catch up to you rapidly, won't it? Make sure that you're getting exercise that you need. And, obviously we're at different places on these things, but these are wake up calls for us. You're not going to lead well for the long haul if you're not staying healthy. But the other part of that is, and it's probably what I've seen more than anything else right now, is is that the toll it's taken emotionally on pastors. And so make sure that you are staying strong emotionally. When you get down, it affects the people around you. And you've got to figure out what your outlet is to be able to stay on top of that. For me, it is playing golf. I love to play golf, and I don't honestly, I'm not playing enough. But blue sky, green grass, white ball. That's my outlet, and I challenge you to make sure that you're staying on top of it emotionally. You may, in fact, I encourage you to get some people to speak into your life about these things. Um, People who love you, people who aren't just yes people, people who are willing to speak the truth in love and say, "Look, I'm concerned about you." Um, and you give them the opportunity to speak that. It's essential that that take place. So stay strong spiritually, stay strong emotionally, stay strong physically. Um, so important that we do that. The last one I would leave with you, and then we'll open up for some questions, is that we keep a healthy pace. Um, One of the things I've found for myself is that sometimes I think I can do it everything. So in our scenario, it was a little bit larger, 15 campuses, 144 employees, and I thought I could do it all. And you start pushing the amount of time that you work. Um, you can't burn the candle at both ends. So pace yourself well. I think there's a difference between balance and pacing. Balance and pacing. There's a lot of people who talk about balance, and I think just the nature of what ministry is about, keeping a healthy balance always isn't easy because you go through seasons where you need to pour into one thing, and then you just have to recognize you just can't only pour into that. You got to bring it back and then pour into something else. And so make sure that you're getting your vacation this summer. Make sure that you're keeping a healthy pace. You can't do it 24/7, 365. Get some time away. Make sure that you're pouring into your marriage as much as you're pouring into your ministry. Make sure that you're pouring into your kids and your grandkids, if that's the case, as much as you're pouring into ministry. And make sure that that pacing is where it needs to be. So those are some thoughts thus far. Maybe I've got some other things I can share, but maybe I'll stop there, since in this dynamic, I'm seeing a wonderful room of people that's incredibly quiet, and I'm trying to read the room a little bit, and allow you to ask some questions. And so maybe we can do that and see where this goes. If I want to share a little bit more, I could do that. So, Kevin, I hand it over to you.
Thank you. John, thank you so much for your time today. Great content, great thought provoking information. If you want to begin to text, I have a few questions already, but if you have a question, please text it so we can ask those. I think the first question I received, let me find the first question I received. There we go. Could you comment on moving from the first chair at your church into a second seat position and how that dynamic has changed in leadership? Maybe even speaking to second chair leaders in the room and first chair leaders in the room, maybe the challenge that is there, the tension that that creates.
Yeah, thank you for that. I appreciate that. I think I'm new enough into it that I can speak to it, I think, but 50 days is not a long time of experience with that. But I will say, I am wired um, um, in such a way where I would rather be on a team that is accomplishing great things than have a title and stand in mediocrity. And I truly mean that. In fact, Pastor Rich and I have have talked about that. Our superintendent has talked about that. We've had that discussion that it's not about a title. It's for me, somebody can be president of the United States. Well, okay, you can start thinking about people, and just because they have a title doesn't mean they're a great leader. I'm wired where, man, I want to make a difference. That's what matters to me. And so Pastor Rich has a vision to take our network from 500 churches to 600 churches. Okay, I want to be a part of that. People want to be a part of a good vision, right? So that's why it's important that we create a compelling vision. But um, the other part of that is that yeah, I'm 59, and I um, just to give you context, and it's been a great run in Victorville. I could have stayed there until we retired, whenever that would be. Um, and yet, God gets you ready. And one of the phrases we use when I was pastoring in Victorville all the time was say yes to God. And when God speaks, you need to say yes. I use the illustration all the time. If God calls me to be a missionary, no matter what my age is, I need to say yes, because if God's wanting me to do it, I got to do it. And so mentally, gearing towards your calling. So how do you be comfortable moving to a number two chair? Is know that God's called you to do that. Like, I don't want to oversimplify it for me, but I don't need to be the guy making the decisions. There's I'm thankful to work under a leader who gives me freedom to make decisions in my area. But I'm a part of a bigger vision, and I want to be a part of a team that's making a difference. And so if God's called me to step into this role in a number two capacity, then I'm good with doing what God's called me to do. And it's like you gotta click it in your head and go, it's not about ego. If it's about ego, well then, sorry, I'm not sure who's asked the question. I don't need to know who's asked the question. But man, God opposes the proud. He gives favor to those who humble themselves in his sight. And so stay humble, and God's going to do great things in his timing. He's called you to be faithful. He's called you to be obedient. He's called you to where he's called you, even geographically. Stay with what he's called you to do, and make the most of what he's asked you to do there. So again, that's the refocus, the revision, and all of that kind of stuff. So anyway, I'm digressing, but that number one, number two thing, um, be good with where you are. I thought, just to let you know, I thought I would spend my career as a pastor being a number two guy. I thought. And at age 29, I sat in a number one chair, and I didn't think I would sit in a number one chair in a small church, but that's what happened. And if you're in a number two chair and that's what God's called you to do, um, be at peace with that. Do what God's called you to do. Because I will tell you, as someone who has sat in a number one chair for the better part of my pastoral ministry, I I needed, and I had, a great number two person. And number two people are amazing. And so any number two person in the room, that's what you're doing, and you're good with that, you stay with that, because God's doing amazing things in you. I've never seen a great church that's banging it on all cylinders, accomplish great things if they don't have a good number two alongside that number one. You need that.
That's really good. I love the simplicity of going back to just a place of obedience, and honoring the call in your life. Another question that we had is, so going back to your ministry at Victorville, your part of your exit plan was after pandemic, or I'm going to say post-pandemic. And the question here is, what are some of the differences, or what are some of the changes that you made from pre-pandemic to post-pandemic in your church before you actually left? What are some steps that you drastically took? I'm assuming that probably part of that was what you just taught us in the refocusing aspect, but what are some practical steps that you took within your leadership or within your church?
Yeah, so I'll use outreach as the example because that's the thing that was probably on my heart more than anything else. And that, quite honestly, was, as the leader in staff meetings, our staff meetings were on Tuesday morning, and I just started talking about it. I just started talking about, look, God's speaking to my heart about how we need to make an impact in this community like none other. How do we do that? How do we go after that? And let's talk about how are you going to do that in children's ministry? How are we going to do that in our youth ministries? How are we going to do it in all of it? And then how are we going to do it, collectively under one umbrella? And then we started talking about we need to create outreach venues. And so that I'll say unfortunately didn't come to full fruition, but it was on the calendar to start moving that direction for this summer and moving into the fall. Yeah, the pandemic still put us at a place where we're limited as what we can do, but as things started to lift, then it was like, we want to do this, we want to do this, we want to do some stuff in the park. We want to get onto our community college campus in a greater way. We want to have presence, and it wasn't always about, man, let's do it in such a way we can bring people to church, though that's always obviously a great thing to do. Highways and byways compel them to come in relationship with the Lord, right? We get that. But sometimes it's a pre-evangelism, just having a presence, serving coffee, being out there, having a name, and just interacting, loving on people. I think we need to do more in the way of loving on people and then loving them into relationship, where then out of that relationship, people want to start asking questions about who Jesus is and preparing our people. Then we did a brief evangelism teaching series where people are, how do you share your faith in 3 minutes? How do you put things together in such a way where it's touching lives? So anyway, all that kind of stuff. Just starting to shift the entire team that direction. It comes out of communication and will come alongside of the fact that you cannot over communicate your vision. And so what God's calling you to do, talk about it in as many medium as you possibly can, visually, online, in person, from the pulpit, every way you possibly can. Brand this thing well so that people start to get it. And when you get blue in the face thinking, man, I'm only talking about this, that's when people start to finally get it. They just start to get it when you feel like, man, I'm exhausted talking about this. So you've got to over communicate the vision.
Perfect. I love this. I think this is a recurring theme that we keep hearing is get into your community. So if you're not getting the takeaway, everyone put it in your phone right now, get into your community. I think it's taking us back to grassroots correctly, correct in the sense of what we should have been doing in the first place. Another question, John, for you is, the person writes, obviously depends on a person's context, but can you give some examples of structures and processes that you've seen changed that seem to bring positive results? So examples of structures and processes that you've seen changed that seem to bring positive results.
Yeah. So, this thing has to be scalable, right? So I can talk in terms of where our church was, but I just want to just flat out say it needs to be scalable. Don't over organize something. Don't get me wrong. The organization is important, and I believe in organization. So I'm the firm believer in that. But in other words, don't make it over difficult, right? Just keep it simple, and yet put the things in place that really matter. You want to give away authority. You want to raise people up. You want to raise them up as you're giving authority away, and there's levels of authority we give away. You want to empower people, but you also want to do that with accountability. And empowering doesn't mean I'm just going to release it, you go do it, and then all of a sudden, whoa, what are you doing, right? So there needs to be some accountability and some mentoring, some coaching, some important decisions in how we turn corners together. I think it's important that we bring things together. systems and structures says that we need to make sure all of our ministries, though we're maybe doing different things, we're accomplishing an overall overarching vision and goal. And so there could be some things with calendar that need to be redone. There's some things maybe with your bylaws that need to be looked at because they're outdated. And I'm not here first to say start changing your bylaws, but um, we did some of that over 15 years. And we when I first went there, women couldn't serve on the board. We made that change, and I championed that cause. I'm thinking we're ordaining women in the Assemblies of God, and we can't have a woman on the board. We got a problem here. So speaking honestly and frankly to you. So, um, uh, there's wow. There's so many little things that can be tweaked, just to make sure that people are able to move things forward. So again, the larger the organization, the more that systems and structures are in place. But don't allow the systems and structures um, to rule. They should be the avenue to get it done. And if it's causing more, I'll say consternation, causing more problems, then you need to look at what that is. And so it depends on your church situation. And I think one of the great ways to look at that would be to ask somebody who's a lay leader, hey, how's this going? What would you tweak? Because sometimes we see it from the angle we see it from, and yet we don't realize that it's not necessarily easy for someone else. Well, it's like, wow, it's really tough to get a key to this building. It's tough to schedule a special event, or that we got whatever it is. I mean, every church has different things you need to work on, but make sure that you keep the systems and structures simple. On the financial side, a whole lot of accountability. I've seen too many churches get themselves into problems because there's too much trust. So let me talk about trust for a second with this. Sorry, I digress, but come back to it. Trust has a double-edged sword to it. As a leader, the more trust I have, the better off it's going to be. I went to a situation where the church was broken. The previous pastor split the church, took 300 people, left. The church trying to figure out what's going on. They're looking at me coming through the door back in 2006 going, okay, who are you? And what are you going to do? Right. And so I had to get it back to zero before we could start really making an inroad. It's about building trust, It's key to everything. About year 5, trust was huge. We start doing campuses, and at year 3, 4, and you get to a point where we're doing all sorts of good stuff. And the building trust thing has the double-edged sword of once you're at a place where people trust you, and I'm just specifically want to say this, don't take advantage of that trust. That's really important. Like the board, I could have asked the board in a board meeting, year 10 through 15, hey, let's go do this. And they'd go, great, go for it. And I mean, I even walked away from 1 or 2 board meetings and said to Josh Gerbrocht, who's now the pastor of the church, he just got voted in on Sunday. He was our number 2 guy. That I said, wow, they really didn't ask many questions at all. They trusted us on this. And I'm thankful for that. But, after a period of time, pastors can take advantage of trust. So I just want to say, hold yourself accountable. And from a financial standpoint, from relationships, for things that can be tripping points, and make sure you have your systems and structures in place so that it doesn't trip you up personally. I've seen people who have had a great start, and somewhere along the line, something happens, and it affects them, affects their ministry. So be careful about that. Okay.
Perfect. I like that. I think, a tweetable moment right here is systems and structure should help us move things forward, not stall things. So probably as you're evaluating things in your church to go, are my systems and structures helping me move things forward? Or are they stopping things? Good takeaway. We have time for one last question, John. Pastor Bill, right prior to you, came up and talked a little bit about the importance of time management, but you've also connected the dots with with the concept of about this idea of pacing. So time management, pacing. How do you best work through not only balancing your time, but also balancing your energy? So the two things there, as well as how does that play out in your responsibility as a pastor to help your staff balance their time and their energy?
Yeah, so I'll direct you to a new book that's out by Carey Nieuwhof. By the way, I'll just make a quick comment. If you're not listening to Carey Nieuwhof podcasts, I would put him in the top 3 of people to listen to regarding leadership stuff. Carey Nieuwhof. I'm sure several of you in the room you're listening to, if not the majority of you. He just came with a book that really deals with the energy side of it. So let's talk about your day, for example. We all have different times where energy is better during the day, and he makes the premise or the statement of schedule your most important things during your best energy time. So most people tend to have good energy mid morning, whatever mid morning is. Like I'll say, I am not a morning person. I wake up, don't talk to me for the first 20 minutes. I'm trying to wake up kind of thing. My wife wakes up, she goes for a run. She runs for a couple of miles, then comes back. She's back in the house and I'm still trying to wake up. So it's amazing how opposites track.
Sure.
Anyway, you may be the morning person. You get up and say, hey, this is great. Boom, you're ready to go. When is your energy best? So my energy is best mid-morning before lunch. My energy is best pretty good after lunch. It kind of goes down, almost, a little bit later here this afternoon. And, maybe that's where you are. Maybe 3 o'clock hits. I can tell you that, man, if I have like 3 counseling appointments in a row in the afternoon, I feel wiped out. I just like, I don't, you need to know your pacing. I'm a night person. Give me something to do at 7 to 10 o'clock at night. I am great. I used to even be better than that. I mean, I wrote my dissertation from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. During a 6-month period of time, because that's when the house was quiet. You got to carve out the time that's best for you, and then put things that are not as good, when you're not as strong, when you're not your best. When can you handle some of the easier things in ministry? Put those things at that time. Make sure that your good creative time, you're putting energy into stuff that's going to move the church forward, that's going to move your ministry forward and touch more people's lives. And so figure that out about your own life. Anyway, I encourage you to pick up that book. But also with that, then, comes the overall thing for the entire year. So pace yourself, because we get it. I mean, Christmas season, you're pouring yourself. Easter, we just came out of that not that long ago. You probably had a week or 2 or maybe 3 where you're just busting it, right? You can't keep that pace. So you've got to know when I've got to pour in, and then when can I back away? When can we have an ebb and flow? Because you're in this for the long haul. And the pandemic has wiped people out. You got to regain your energy and regain your focus, regain your vision in the midst of that. So pace it well. Pace it well.